always nice to get a parcel, but it's even better when it's a nice big box from Japan. Oh yeah! G'day boys and girls, another Makita 40V circular saw review. They're starting to pile up. If at any point you are interested in the saw you are about to see, have a look down in the description. There'll be links to buy them in Japan. That's where you got to get them from at the moment, Japan. If you order them from the sellers that I'll put down below, as you see, they're sent via DHL. It's real quick, about a week from Japan to New Zealand. It takes longer to ship things within New Zealand sometimes. So it's a great service. You get cool tools, delivered quickly. Yeah, what more do you want? I'm excited, I've got some ripping to do. I want to test this against the 18V one. Let's get it out of the box. The Japanese packaging, once again, way more eco-friendly than what we end up getting here in New Zealand with Makita stuff. Just cardboard, no plastic, no unnecessary printing. I don't think I've ever had a plastic bag in any of the Makita stuff that I've gotten from Japan. The impact driver came with paper bags for the bits and stuff. Totally different ethos. Anyway, let's have a look at this thing. You will see, first up, it's black. Okay, just like the little fella in the background there. That is the 125, the HS005G. Very cool little saw. The base plate at the front there comes off. Very, very cool. Check that out in the review up in the corner down in the description if you want to see that. Watch this one first, of course. Finally, a 165mm saw. It's a shame that they've put the blade on upside down, but I'll get over that. I can see a lot of similarities between this and the 125 in the background there, and I can see a few differences as well straight off the bat. The best of which is not visible from this side of the saw, but you'll see it in a minute, don't worry. I will be putting this up against the DHS680, the 18V. Brilliant little saw this. I've loved this saw, but is it time to move on? May well be. We'll find out shortly. So let's look at this. It's got a nice shiny base. Look at that. Woohoo! Just like the 125 in the background. It's like a mirror. Hopefully you can't see my out of control long hair in it. Also, just like the 125, this is not metal. Plastic, plastic, plastic. This is just painted to look like the aluminium, which is there, but not there. It came with a rip guide or straight fence or whatever you call it where you come from. Makita New Zealand, please take note. Makita seem to have been stopping putting these in the boxes, which is really annoying. It's okay when you've got plenty of saws, like some people do. But if you're getting one for the first time and it doesn't come with this, major hassle. Shiny, shiny. It is black, as you can see. It is polycarbonate. Some of the polycarbonate, like these bits here, you can see you've got the glass in it. You can see where it swirls. It's hard to get that right in the black. You can see the trails where the glass goes. Some bits are just polycarbonate, like this bit here. You can see that smooth black there, and this piece here is a sort of speckly finish. That's the glass in there. This one is more like the battery casings, which are just polycarbonate. So it's a mixture of polycarbonate and polycarbonate with glass reinforcement, and TPE overmolding on this bit here. That is not plastic, that's got the rubberized overmolding. The best feature that I can see that this has that the 125 in the background doesn't is the battery goes on in a better orientation. I can put a 5 amp hour battery on here if I so desire. Looks a bit crazy, but it fits on no problem. Whereas with this one being so small and dainty, it doesn't fit on there without you moving the base, so it reduces your depth of cut. But why would you want to put that on that anyway? Just like the 125 in the background, this one has 2 speeds. There's a few saws doing that now. Hikoki does it on at least one of theirs as well. It's got the same trigger as the 125, a nice, real easy to push in as your finger just slides over it. You don't have to push it in sideways, and you don't have to push it directly down. Just glide your thumb over it and it just automatically just sort of pops down. Very easy. And it's like that on both sides for left and right handed. Oh, of course. It has an area front and back for attaching a guide, just like the 18V one does, so that you can run it on a track easily with an adapter that you have to buy. It doesn't have the removable front like the 125 has. Why do you need that, do you ask? Up in the top corner. Onboard tool storage for changing the blade. Has an area here for hooking a lanyard or something through, so you can have your strap on the back there, hook it over things. It does have an area on the front here for an optional rafter hook. doesn't come with it. I don't like to give you the depth of cut numbers that manufacturers give. I'll test that out myself shortly. When you want to change your depth of cut, you've got the lever in the back here. Lowers down nicely. Nice and smooth actually. That feels really nice. Some of them are a bit Sometimes this is just a thin piece of metal, but on here, quite wide. It's a good 1/4 of an inch wide sort of thing. Glides really nice. When you want to bevel the saw, just like the rip guide, you have a knob front and back, which I like, makes things a lot more solid. I'll tell you the bevel depth also once I have gone out, tested the saw and given it a few cuts. Now while this one doesn't have the removable front and the backwards bevel of 15 degrees that this one has, it does still have a bevel that goes the other way. So as well as the standard 45 degrees one way, you can flick this little lever here at the front and that will give you 5 degrees the other direction. When you go back, it automatically resets to the right place. There's also a little grub screw in there for adjusting this if it's not quite square. Something I had to do on the 125 when I first got it because it wasn't quite right. That's not something wrong with the saw, okay? Saws need calibration from time to time. Miter saws, circular saws, table saws, they all need a little tweak. You got to keep checking that they're in square. Don't send the damn tool back every time it's not in square, okay? Some people like to do that. I can see that like the 125 there is lots of places in the bottom, lots of screw holes, lots of adjustments that you can do to get your saw running exactly true. Something a lot of guys have been asking for. When it comes to the RPM, like I say, it's got 2 speeds. Push the button here, you can't do it unless there's battery on it of course. You need to pull the trigger, start it up, then flick it over to the lower speed. On the higher speed it runs at 5,500 RPM according to the manual. It's the only thing that's written in English. And 4,100 on the slower speed. Why do you want 2 speeds, you say? Well, sometimes if you just want to get a finer cut, I personally would have it on the high speed if I'm ripping through framing timber. If you wanted to do a slightly nicer cut and maybe you put a finer blade on it and you're cutting through melamine, some sort of laminate, something like that, nice fine ply, then you might stick it on the lower speed and just glide through gently instead of just ripping through the bugger. I'm now getting an itchy trigger finger and I want to go and try this thing out. I've got some timber to rip. I've just been ripping with another Makita circular saw which I really like, a new one which you probably have already seen. If not, it might be the video after this one. Anyway, hopefully it's not raining out there yet and I will go and test this out up against the 18 volt. Now, rather than spend $100 getting another one of these Makita blades to New Zealand from Japan, I thought I'd go a bit cheaper and use some of these budget Milwaukee ones. Budget just because they're a damn sight cheaper than that, and they're also were $20 cheaper per blade than the Effie Cup Makita ones. I find these are actually quite good blades for certain things. They're not as quick as the Makita ones I found, but there's something that they do that I'll do a video on, I think, over on builds and stuff that I want to show you. Yeah. But anyway, I'll chuck these on these tools now and we'll go rip a sopping wet 8x2 or 200 by 50 as it is known in this part of the world now. Is the 40 volt gonna do better than the 18 volt? I certainly hope so. I'm hoping for a smashing, but we'll see. You never really know. The proof is in the cutting. They've got a really small diameter flange here for holding the blade on. If we move the guard out of the way, you'll also see a reflection of a Milwaukee blade. But you'll see it cut out here in the base. They've tried to get this as deep as they can cut-wise. Don't be surprised if this is better than a 185. Now when it comes to the batteries for this test, I'm going to let you guys decide. So you're going to have to yell out pretty loud because it's hard to hear at the moment. Shall I go 5 amp hour 40 volt versus 5 amp hour 18 volt? Or should I go 2.5 amp hour 40 volt and 5 amp hour 18 volt? That is fairer in my opinion. That is both 90 watt hours of power. They are essentially the exact same battery, the same cells. These are just wired differently. So that or that. Yell out now. Well, yell 2.5 or 5. That's how I'm going to work it out. Yeah. Okay, right. Okay. Shut up. 2.5 it is. Makes sense to me. Got some nice fresh sopping wet timber here. And I've just been testing it out with that saw that you can see in the bottom of the shot. Anyway, so that's 8x2s and I'm now going to rip them in half. I'm going to use one particular piece that I will then cut in half, so we'll have 2 3-meter lengths. That way, same density in wood roughly and the same wetness. This is something that the 18 volt usually struggles with. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Those saws did well, man. That is sopping wet. It couldn't be much wetter on the inside than that. It's just wet as. They were clogging up with sawdust big time, but they both managed it. I'm going to disappear now for a couple of weeks, get to grips with this thing, have some fun, and I will get back to you on what I think about it. But don't worry, a couple of weeks to me is only going to be a couple of seconds to you guys. Now I get the top sign, but the bottom sign, how are you going to see that when you're coming down? Cuts nice in both speeds, but you know, a handle, would it really have been that hard? Would it have messed up the styling of the tool? Is that the problem? Let's take a look at their cross-cut performance. I'm going to be cutting some of this shitty old pine I've got laying around. Got a whole lot of this. I'm going to dice up the firewood. It's 20mm thick. I'm going to put it up 3 layers thick to cut, and the 18 volt there may have a little bit of a problem with this. Now, as you just saw, they were pretty close. What's going on there? Let's try this one more time. So as you saw, the 680, the 18 volt, didn't quite have enough to get through there. So, how deep do these two saws cut? So this is the 18 volt, this is the 40 volt. 18 volt coming in at about 58.5mm, which is pretty good, but the 40 volt comes in at 66mm. See how they've reduced the size of that to get the depth of cut? This is the 18 volt, this is the new 40 volt. Significantly smaller, gives you that extra few millimeters of cut. And this one's okay through framing timber here as long as you don't want a bevel, because as you saw, around 58mm, framing timber in New Zealand is 45mm, no problem there. But what happens when we put this on a 45-degree bevel? So this saw, with this saw blade on it, can do a bevel cut to 46mm, whereas the 18 volt only managed 42.5, which is of course the difference between making your cut and giving yourself a headache. Okay, I think it's been long enough. It's time to wrap this up. Do I like this tool? Before I tell you that, I'll just tell you a couple of other little things I don't think I mentioned earlier. This here, and this here. These are the knob screw dealies that hold your rip guide, straight guide in place, and they're a little bit different to what you would get on, well, I've never seen one like this on any other Makita circular saw, and I've got a few. They're captive screw knobs, whatever you want to call them. And instead of just being a screw that goes straight down onto your guide that leaves all these nice little marks along it when you tighten them up, you're actually screwing down a larger circle there that clamps onto your guide over a greater area. Should hopefully give it a bit more grip. That means these don't vibrate out, which is good. Like, they fall off sometimes, you lose them, because if they do fall out, they of course land in mud or long grass. And they're much nicer to use. And they're the same front and back. Quite a nice little feature. And I'm surprised it's only on this model. This was the first of the 40 volt, believe it or not. the 40 volt circular saws from Makita, yet it's not on any of the other ones. This is the 01. It's not on the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, or the rear handled. So a little bit surprised why they did it on this one and then dropped it. Maybe it was just too expensive and they thought, bugger it, we don't need to do it. Or maybe something went wrong with them and they don't like them. Personally, at the moment, I like it. Long term, maybe it's not good. It's a little bit more complex, more to go wrong perhaps. Something does go wrong, but harder to replace than just the old standard screw-in knob style. It's got 2 speeds. Earlier in the video, you would have seen me using these 2 different speeds. You would have seen me doing the cuts through the 3 pieces of pine. I started doing that first cut with this saw, and as I was cutting I thought, oh damn it, I've got it on the wrong speed, but I figured I might as well finish it at that speed and then do it again at the other speed. So there you got 2 for the price of 1 there. With the light on the left as you look at it, that's the slow speed. On the right, she sounds super powerful. On the left, on the slower speed, it basically cuts at the same speed as the 18 volt. Now if you've got a different 18 volt model, one of the earlier models than the one I showed earlier, then there's an even greater jump in speed difference. Now the depth of cut, this one as you saw cut a lot deeper than the 18 volt one. You can get an 18 volt one from Makita that is a deep cut one. It just comes as standard with the 40 volt. And this Metabo or Hikoki one also runs at the same depth, 66 millimeters depth of cut. That seems to be the standard sort of depth, the max you can get with one of these 165 millimeter or 6.5 inch circular saws. When you're using it, when you're doing ripping, it feels way more powerful. You know, when you're using a tool and you're using a saw and it starts to struggle and it sounds a bit sad. This, you get that a lot less than you would with an 18 volt one. With the 18 volt, when I rip, I've got to take it careful. You've got to back it off a bit else you stall it, that sort of thing. This has a lot more power to push through when it needs to. I do wish, however, it had a handle on the front like the 18 volt has here. The 18 volt also did come with the rafter hook. Got to buy it separately on that one. Doesn't bother me too much because I think I'm going to do something with that area. So yeah, this one's got the front handle, which I never used to use for a long time, but now I do use, and so it's been annoying me on this one. This little 18 volt Metabo's also got a front handle, even if it does look like it was an afterthought, it's still there. But this one, I find myself grabbing onto this bit here, which is not ideal. So what I'm thinking, we've got these 2 threaded holes here for the rafter hook. Instead of putting a rafter hook on, I'm thinking I come out here and I put a handle across the front. Screw it in there, bit of tube or something along here so you can hold on to it here. Also sticking out over this side a wee bit so that you can hold up your guard here and hold on to the handle still. So that would be the handle about there. I think that'd work alright. Because yeah, I am missing the handle on the front. Could potentially have a look at this plastic and see how chunky it is. Because it's almost basically just a piece that they've stuck on there, it seems, so that when you put it like that, it sits flat, makes it easy to change your blade. They did the same thing with the 125mm saw with these bits that they've added on the front here so that it also sits nice and flat whenever you want to change the blade. You don't have to rock it around, balance it, it balances itself. So very handy. But there might be some electronics and shit in there, so I better not screw straight into it. I might open it up, have a look, and I could potentially screw a handle on the front of here somewhere. We'll see, project for a rainy day. But overall, I'm thinking it's around 20% more powerful than the 18 volt that I showed in the video, the DHS 680. 20 to 25% quicker, and it's just got that extra power when you need it, and sustained power that the other one lacks. And it cuts much nicer with the Makita blade on it than it does with this Milwaukee one. You get them from Japan, they come with these blades like this, and as you can see the 125, same sort of blade. It's a 35 tooth on that one, and this 165 came with a 45 tooth. They're nice blades, they cut quick, very thin kerf. So if you're interested in one of these, Japan only, down in the description, that's where you got to get them. I have spoken to Makita, they are looking at bringing these into New Zealand. As for the rest of the world, I don't know. If you want one, down in the description. The links down in the description are guys I have purchased stuff from in Japan, so I trust them. But if your parcel goes missing, don't blame me. And there's a shit ton of links down in the description to other 40 volt reviews I've done. I've done heaps of them. I've done them on this saw, this saw, this saw, this saw, and the other one that I can't fit in shot, as well as most other 40 volt Makita tools that have been released so far. So if you're into Makita 40 volt, check out all those links down in the description and at the end of the video and up in the corner here and everywhere else where they normally are on videos. So, I'm still working out what to do with my lighting. So thanks for watching yet again. Or if you're new here, thanks for popping along. Please consider subscribing and I will see you on another one real soon. So many people are complaining Makita aren't putting out these tools quick enough. I tell you what, when you review tools all the time, they're putting them out plenty quick enough, I assure you. It's hard keeping up. Okay, thanks guys. See you later.